Dark Cloud was pretty good. You built weapons, stuck them in snakes, and delved a million levels. It was work, but work you got used to. Work that worked. There was fun in that. But the sequel? Dark Chronicle said, here's work. Lots and lots of work. Now, I actually really like Dark Cloud 2. It's cool. But it's a little chunky. Nothing wrong with that, you know, can't resent a fat ass, but boy, it looks better from behind. Wow, that was awful. Unpatron me, won't you? I have no doubt that Chronicle, or Dark Cloud 2 in the West and South Korea, stretched the budget and the hardware. It's an enormous game that's very easy to understand, but totally stuffed, or thickified, if you will, with this heinous load of extraneous content. This Pandora's box, and you know what, hold that thought? We're gonna do something we haven't done in a while and talk story, then mechanics, back and forth. Game's a damn saga, so strap in and strap on, because we're going dungeon delving. Chapter 1. I am playing a video game. Before the game starts, you gotta dress your character. To be honest, the default outfit's pretty good. We like our heroes looking scrappy, but you're gonna need to swap the shoes. It's called drip, sweetie. So the world of Dark Cloud's moved on since the dark ages of 1. It's a low-key steampunk affair like the best game ever made, Steambot Chronicles. Max, the hero, is a tinker's apprentice. He gets his hands dirty and he's a smart kid. It's a functional protag. There's even some spice between him and his father, wondering why his mother never came home. Now I'm skipping some junk, but the inciting incident is, Max finds out that clowns are evil. Oh. No. And more than that, they're coming for his stone. So his friend says, okay, don't panic, man. Take this.
Wow, you got guys!
And just like that, we're back in the Dark Cloud game flow, creeping through dungeons, bashing monsters. Some of those are people, Max. Sorry, not to pull a, where does Sonic keep all those rings? But Max has definitely seen brain matter. All I'm saying. The game's much better looking than its predecessor. I know, I've got a thing for cell shading, but the direction's really solid. Though some of the faces are a little funny, especially combined with the dialogue.
You can turn it off and on with the select button.
This
I
is
think the one in the channel's called the key handle.
Well, let's introduce the first major addition. I'm 90% sure that species is endangered. Basically, you have an additional party member in the ride pod. Trouble is, it runs out of weapon durability pretty quick unless you take the time to upgrade it, and I like focusing on the protagonists more than the unsustainable power-ups. Good for some stuff, though. Cleans up big enemies until Max can take them himself. Now, at some point, you're handed a camera to snap pics of things, so you can put exactly 3 of them in a big thought bubble and think of stuff. Also called inventing. Game's word, not mine. It's what they sold it with, promising over 100 hours of gameplay. I could not think of something more awful if I tried. It's already pushing 30 if you're quick. Even worse, a lot of the high-quality inventions require extremely specific and often missable photos from bosses. Here's what the process looks like. Epic. But by the end of the first dungeon, you're marinating in the familiar and the novel, ready to take your first steps into a much larger world. Chapter 2. Pee pee poo! And then came the forest. The gameplay really starts blooming here. Yes, I am a hack, but before that, you've got to deal with the clown wizard, a man of such sorcerous skill that he relies on machine guns and a belt of dynamite. Okay, yeah, go off, pal. Preferably elsewhere. You're properly introduced to Monica here, the other party member. Really like the consolidation. Shame they didn't anywhere else. Anyway, Monica goes ape on Bobo and tells us the world's in danger. Monica comes from 100 years in the future. And yet you wield a sword and magic. Curious. And some guy is making his opposition in the future vanish by erasing the origin points of those places and people in Max's time. So we're doing the town builder from last game. But first we gotta save the dwarves, who really love grape juice. Look, America, everyone knows it's wine. Here's the source. It's wine. People get drunk. Parents are drunks. Your teachers are drunks. I can name 4 locally. Combat's a bit different this time around. The old game made it pretty simple. You moved in and comboed when enemies were open, basically never guarded because movement was good enough, sometimes swapped party members to deal with flying foes, and abused iframes on your charge attack. Now, charge attacks are still good, they're just not everything. Iframes, yes, very punishable if you don't score a knockdown though, so be wary. Characters are slow in general, even more so when locked on, and breaking lock is harder to pull on reaction. Some enemies are wise to ranged attacks, and while many can be kited, damage is low until the endgame. You can dodge with an input backflip or jump into battle with a laggy forward swing. A lot of enemies can be stunned with sustained hits, and guarding is actually really good. And I wouldn't have found that out if the game didn't force it. You get whipped into shape pretty quick. Unlike Dark Cloud 1, combat's actually pretty tough, often outright dangerous with more than one opponent. You really don't have time to screw around. It's literally block or... So if you come out of this game alive, I'm telling you, you're ready to learn fighting games. You need patience, you need to respect the monster's options, you need to react accordingly, you need to be defensive and proactive at different times. Wait for optimal punish windows. It's surprisingly demanding. And with only 2 party members, 4 weapon types, and a ride pod to ease the truly hard stuff, it's easily the most fun I had with the game. Even when I died from horrendously nonsensical bullshit. I'm serious, some of the enemies' attacks are borderline unfair, but what you gonna do? They knew you could just pause and eat cheese whenever you want. Had to be like that. Related note, bring cheese. And like before, you're always leveling up your weapons, always synthesizing stat-boosting items into them and building them up to better things. Check it out, I got a trumpet gun! And if you were wondering, do any Dark Cloud 1 characters return? Yes! Like the nostril tree with the shop in his nostril. But the entire detour with these guys serves to teach you about the fishing system from before. Get out of here with that! I don't care. At least we saved some dwarves. Not that one, though. Chapter 3. People die when they are killed! Moving on, the party finds a hut in the mountains occupied by a sick amnesiac girl.
Where is Master Crest? Tell me.
Oh
Where
shit, she's
is
getting
he?
belligerent. Quick, put her down! This mini-story is about acquiring the Duck Doctor, or a Quack Doctor, very funny guys, to heal her, and when that fails, restoring a future Chinese restaurant run by Lao Chow, who can cure any disease with his famous dish. Solve Medicare, guys, just recruit Lao Chow. The gameplay really gets transparent here. Like, even in the forest, enemies were often playing around, but you start to become aware that, hey, there's a seal preventing me from swapping off Monica, and the floor is full of golems that resist sword damage by 80%. Did I mention you still have to kill every enemy until the key to the next floor drops? Because that hasn't changed. That hasn't changed. The game's fun, but like I said, demanding, and you're either gonna make it through or quit long before you see the credits roll. It does not forgive. Will you fight, or will you perish like a dog? I mean, for the sake of survival, I often found myself cheesing sections by catching enemies on the bridge and abusing charged and ranged attacks, and even that's only so effective. It just kinda drags sometimes. And speaking of quitting early, oh boy, game systems! It's a sort of divine cruelty to get to the next plot scene and be forced into completing a golfing minigame with weird physics and rules. Do I look? No, seriously, look at my catalog. Do you think I've even looked at a golf game? That was in! What do you mean? Anyway, Spheda, the golf game, is playable after clearing any given floor of monsters. No. After collecting enough geostones in a dungeon, like before, you head back to town and start creating, placing, arranging rectangles. Most of the rebuilding requirements are pretty simple, but they've each got unique complications, like balancing building count on 4 platforms, etc. Here's a helpful illustration of why you shouldn't build wood buildings in cinder squalls. Unfortunately, you don't collect enough materials in dungeons to build everything you need in a given place. Hope you've got your notepad, or are working to open your chakras. Now, a small thing that started in the last chapter, but really becomes necessary here, is finding people in the main town and convincing them to up and move into, I don't know, straw huts in the middle of the woods for the sake of preserving the future. After all, those future folks need progenitors. Weird. And it really is that silly. Hey Max, can you find me X, Y, or Z? Okay, thanks. I'll leave my life for your silly adventure. Man, you can't even get governing bodies to take climate change seriously. You really think townies are gonna understand your weird time travel origin point restoration initiative? Yeah, okay. Here's one of our glowing candidates now, the creep who painted his wife. Okay, word of advice, Scarecrow, portraits brought to life to your can't consent. Get it together. And worse, you try to exile these people in remote places, but they need the brick home. They need the purple roof. Ooh, you're so lucky there's no legislation for animancy. I swear, take one step over the line. Anyway, collecting dudes isn't all that bad, and you don't really need that many specific people. Just open the wiki when you don't know who you're looking for. So this chapter is about trying to change the past to ensure the witch girl's teacher doesn't die. It properly introduces us to some of the antagonist's cronies. Gaspard and a zombie, I guess. I like how Monica goes totally bloodthirsty, like full killing intent on this guy. The clown? Oh no, he's fine. Gaspard though? Man's about to see his organs. Now this ends with the bad guys escaping and the sage pulling a genuine anime moment. I swear, Dark Cloud loves trying to make the player feel things. It has since the first. But these models, this fairly cliche framing.
I knew it! I knew he was gonna look at this! You...
Chapter 4, Stuff for Gamers. The beach. Whew, okay, this is absolutely pivotal, you guys. The beach is the best setting. You cannot screw this up. Let's see, there's some story about a sea creature and a rabbit. Whatever, that doesn't matter. Let's see the dungeon. Mamma mia. Now I thought this was a PS4 port issue, or rather PS4 emulation issue, but there's evidence this happened in the original. Actually, lots of little things happened during the playthrough. You know, obvious flickering, constantly, like little visual stuff like that. This woman's shadow literally cast the endless void onto the floor, right? Mildly eldritch. But I have never encountered a glitch that incredible, and it's going to haunt me. And, in fact, the beach level's pretty tame. Like, this game has unbelievably beautiful visuals so often. A little saturated, but we all know I love juice. This cave thing, though, leading into further underground caves? Like, they needed at least one cave, right? Most of the other dungeons were open areas, but to sacrifice the beach. At least they tried to mix it up with the multiple dungeon zones on a single floor, but oinka oinka, me like son! Now I've been getting into the subsystems, right? Photography, inventing, immigration, golf, fishing, the ride pod, etc. But that's not all! Did you know you can have a party member at any given time that doesn't fight and instead provides passive bonuses like higher item drops, or makes super bombs endlessly for immediate resale? Did you know you can collect monster badges for Monica so she can transform into them? For reasons? Did you know there are fish competitions and fish races? There are! Let's not forget you can collect medals for beating floors in specific ways, in specific times, with specific characters. Completion is a mere 100 hours away! And even the story's in on the junk. Make a fish tank. Hey pal, did you know you can raise fish and they have stats? Stop! Stop! There's so much going on in Dark Cloud 2. I didn't fish, I didn't race my fish, I didn't bother with medals or badges or anything outside of what I had to because the main game's fat enough. This is the kind of game a kid gets lost in. This is the kind of game that sticks with people for their entire lives because it never stops giving or asking. There's so much. It's very clearly not designed to my tastes, but for those people, grats on the best game ever. This one's for you. So this is how the story goes. Dino mad, Dino bad, Dino dad, Dino sad. I have well and truly lost it. Chapter 5. This is what it means to go even further beyond! By the time you've hit the mountains, some things become very clear. The antagonist is actually trying to stop your quest. The RPG grind is totally ingrained in your play, and you're infinitely more competent than in the beginning. Enemies are dealing more damage, but you're not giving them the chance. Some games do benefit from length in that the player will recognize their own skill growth, and if that happens, they're probably in for the ride. It's why I shriek at the start of most of my videos, you know, if you can't handle the annoying stuff, get out now. That's just me. I respect the lengths the game goes to maintain the intent of the experience. It really is an epic journey. I don't have much to say about the actual dungeon here, but the bosses are worth mention. The whole game, bosses went down easy. They were kind of tropey knockdown and bash affairs, just what you'd expect, mildly mechanical, but at this critical point against the airship, you're forced into a ride pod, which I wasn't leveling. So this happened. What? I was then forced to grind it up, get a new weapon, and then the fight looked like this. And the boss, even every following boss, went down way faster than can conscionably be called ethical. It's the real shame of the system. You're gonna need a certain amount of strength to get through certain fights, and definitely the grind of the dungeon floors. You're gonna get strong enough to invalidate the challenge. This happened in Dark Cloud 1 because I overhyped weapon leveling to myself. In 2, the game made me. So anyway, you've gotta honk the magical fire saxophone to part the Red Sea. Extremely funny stuff. Then Gaspard challenges us. You know how that goes. And this scene. What is going on with these story beats?
You're chasing after my mother. You'll hurt her if I don't stop you.
Heh, I too had a mother, and humans were bad to us. Then she died. Heh, I guess fighting for your mother is a pretty good thing to do. You're right. I will walk away now.
4 or more build-up scenes. 2 direct battles. What? Just let the villain be the villain. He killed Monica's dad. Okay, Monica's dad was skewered by this man. to death, bro. Don't redeem him. I don't want to hear it. Oh, turns out the villain's the hero here, because he turns Gaspard into Satan, retaining the integrity of Gaspard's villainy. Maybe the story's better than I thought. Chapter... What chapter is it right now? Now, if you've played fighting games, you've probably heard the phrase, run it back. Max meets his mom, and she tells him he's gonna need a bunch of artifacts so they can be gathered at Stonehenge to unlock the ability to cause a chrono cross between his time and hers because she's from the future and the anti-antagonist army needs to bring the flying Gundam fortress Pasnos into the past to challenge his own flying fortress. Obviously. Obviously. It's pretty typical these days. I love this. Well, don't just stand there, throw rocks at him! So this is the cleanup segment. You go back to every old area, complete a level-appropriate mini-dungeon, kill a slightly bigger, reskin normal enemy.
Oh, not Train Toast!
Get a key, and do whatever else in the free time before you're locked into the endgame. One side system I slightly touched on, photographing missable things. Well, there's a ton of both missable and non-missable photos. Many hard to get. You know, you're often taking pictures in the middle of enemy attacks. It's not fun. For all my hard work late in the game, not that I got them all, but a good chunk, this hick Donnie gave me a hat. It looks awful. Thanks, Donnie. Oh, and by the way, Chapter 7, the end. Finally, the last dungeon, not counting the secret post-game dungeon. Aren't you guys proud of me? I don't have a video game addiction, just bills. Nothing meaningfully changes in the last dungeon. It's tough, and I hope you've been collecting power-ups throughout the game, even though they're extremely missable. But you know what? None of that matters. I finally upgraded my gun to a broken defense-ignoring laser beam. Fair? Why the hell should I have to play fair? On that note, Monica's magic weapon just never did it for me. Her sword was good and faster than Max's weapon. It lets you put the pressure on in certain situations, but Max's guns and general damage potential, I want to say they're close, but I don't even have to interact with the game anymore. Except that last diorama, very sneaky, hiding most of the requirements and forcing me to look at paintings to piece it together. Thankfully, it's 2021 and I don't have to make a giant mess of trial and error. Look at my garden. Seriously, something about being in this place you made at the end of the game feels spiritual. But look at my garden! The final boss, this guy everyone calls Griffin, is actually a Babby Rabby. I hate what I just wrote. But he steals your time gems, goes Super Saiyan, and turns into Ganondorf. Good. Good for him. Shame about the next part, though. This was fun until it wasn't. Yes, that's right. In Dark Cloud 2, you have to fight evil itself. Now we must sharpen our senses, steel our will, and ignite our passionate hearts for the future of this broken world! Dark Chronicle is cute. It's meaty, it's long, it's aesthetically attractive, it's got blemishes like anything worth talking about. About 50% of you are thinking, this guy's describing a phallus. How dare you? It's the kind of game you can get lost in for a couple weeks, a month, or like many of its longtime fans, a lifetime. But its rhythm is specific, its angle unique. If it fits, you'll know. So if it sounds like your kind of thing, it's even on PS4. Honk off a few rounds. Good night, everyone. Hey, it's KBash. Special thanks goes out to my $4 patrons, whose names are on the screen. The show's on its way somewhere good thanks to the community's generosity. And special thanks goes out to my extra generous patrons who are Andy Blarg, Arch, Azero, Basement Dweller, Big Bye Crybaby, Boha, Brandon, Brios, Cal, Can I Cuss on Here? Caesar T, Cordant, Chris A, Cody Golden, Corgi the Lad, Couch MOBA, CW Glassworks, Kyle Lapreed, Daddy Dagoth, Dakota Storm Jones, Dondium, Danky Stank Swanky Make, Dara, David Castillo, Den Het, Dylan Coffee, LPO, Annex, Aesthetico, Exa, Frankenstitch, Glyph Seeker, Guard Corey, Gucci Plant, Hatsune Miku's Crack House, Harkaj, Heeman Gaming Station, Huey, Ingenious Clown, Irradiated Cherries, Ice Kyle, Ivy Ruth Langley, Jason Lasky, Jaden, Jadaeus, John Weber, Joke Frog, Keegan Too Cool, Keith Myers, Clocked, Creighton, Crazy Dark Chocolate, Latrix, Laundry Mom, Lego Sid, Loki, Lon, Lucas Boyd, Magical Madman, Marcules, Maximilian Wolfgang Niver, Milky Moo Official, Mitchellanius, Mr. Dodongo, Nito Torpedo, Old Burgle, Old Man Cranberry, Only LK, Gaplant, Quasar McDougal, Quinn, Reasonable Willow, Reggie Rodriguez, Ricochet Frame, Sagitrash, Siren Smells Good, Salty Smasher, Sekai no Awarida, Shod, Simp God, Slagathor, Sleepy Wabbit, Space Lizard, Special Children, Spooky Grimalkin, Squishword, Sublime Cataclysm, Super Katsanova, Super Sandwich Guy, TFY Lex, The Big Bubby, The Salt Knight, Thrips Heartrop, Travis Edwards, Twiddle Chungus, V01156, Vid, Venom, Vice Pup, Viewers Like You, Vic, Walter Taggart, Waposa, Weeb Trash, Well Shit, Yay Kundo, Zachary V, Zanaso, Zane the Impure, Zane the Pure, Zed Slayer Gamer, Cyberbunk. If you'd like to help support the show and make it even better, check out my Patreon. We've got all kinds of goals and lots of rewards in store. Stay tuned for more. KBash out.